My name is Clara Bennett, and I've spent most of my adult life in the quiet corners of hospital corridors, wrapped in the soft rustle of scrubs and the rhythmic beeping of monitors. I'm a nurse at Riverside General, and I've been here for nearly a decade. Nursing, to me, is more than a job, it's a calling. I hold hands that tremble with fear. I soothe pain with gentle words and medicine. I stand strong when families break down, and I offer comfort even when I have none left to give. It's a life of purpose, but not one of excitement. I'm 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my life has followed a steady rhythm. Long shifts, quiet evenings, early mornings. My days bleed into one another. Sometimes I forget what day it is unless I check the patient schedule. Outside the hospital, things are even quieter. I live alone in a modest apartment on the second floor of a building that smells faintly of laundry detergent and rain-soaked concrete. There are no voices echoing through the hall, no footsteps waiting for me when I unlock my door at the end of the day. And strangely, I've grown used to it. I never really had time to fall in love. Not in college, when I was buried in textbooks and caffeine. Not during my early days at the hospital, when every shift felt like a test of survival. And certainly not now, when my world is all about checking vitals and keeping things from falling apart. Sometimes, after work, I drive out to visit my mother. She lives in Willowbrook, a sleepy little village 2 hours outside the city. The roads wind through open fields and quiet woods, and by the time I reach her house, the air always feels cleaner, lighter. My mother's growing older, and though she never asks for help, I see the way her hands shake when she pours tea, or how slowly she climbs the stairs. I help her where I can. We don't talk much, but we don't need to. There's comfort in our silence, the kind that only comes from years of shared love and quiet understanding. I suppose, if you looked at my life from the outside, you'd say it was peaceful, and maybe it was, but somewhere deep inside, I had started to wonder, is this it? Was this what the rest of my life would look like? Early mornings, exhausted nights, and weekends folding laundry while watching the world fall in love on television. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't truly living either. There was a stillness in my heart, not painful, just constant, like standing in a room where the clock ticks, and no one ever comes through the door. Then one day, everything shifted. It began with a name I didn't yet know, and a smile I hadn't seen before. A change in the wind that I didn't recognize until it stirred the stillness in my soul. But at that time, I had no idea. I was just Clara Bennett, nurse, daughter, loner, living a quiet, simple life with no expectations and no interruptions. And I never saw him coming. It was a Wednesday morning when Dr. Ethan Ward first walked through the front doors of Riverside General. I remember it clearly, not because anything dramatic happened, but because something in the air felt different, like the quiet hum of a song you didn't know you'd been waiting to hear. The hospital was its usual buzz of activity, patients coming in, nurses running through charts, the faint smell of antiseptic lingering in every hallway. But all the motion seemed to pause for just a moment when Ethan walked in. He wasn't flashy or loud. There was no grand entrance. He wore a simple white coat, dark blue scrubs beneath, and a kind of easy confidence that made people turn their heads without knowing why. He was tall, with tousled brown hair, light stubble on his jaw, and those unmistakable blue eyes, the kind that didn't just look at you, but into you. The nurses around me took notice quickly. Whispers circled, smiles lingered. He was the new cardiologist from up north, someone said. Young, brilliant, still single, someone else added. A rare combination of charm and credibility. I watched from a distance, quietly returning to my work. I wasn't the type to gossip or swoon, and I certainly didn't believe, not for a second, that someone like him would ever notice someone like me. I was just me. No designer scrubs, no picture-perfect makeup or flawless figure, just Clara Bennett, plain, quiet, dependable. invisible in most rooms. Still, there was something gentle about the way Ethan moved. He didn't just rush from one task to another like so many doctors did. He stopped to listen when people spoke. He asked the receptionist how her day was. He thanked the janitor for holding the elevator door. And when he passed by the nurse's station, his eyes met mine for a brief moment, and he smiled. That smile stuck with me. Over the next few days, our paths began to cross more often. A passing good morning turned into small talk in the break room. Once, he asked if I liked herbal tea or coffee. I told him I preferred tea, less caffeine, fewer regrets. The next morning, he brought me a cup of jasmine tea without a word and left it on my desk. I was stunned. Ethan wasn't just kind, he was thoughtful. He paid attention to the little things, the things most people missed. And without realizing it, I began to wait for those moments. A glance, a question, a quiet hello in the hallway. One evening, after a particularly long shift, I was sitting on a bench near the staff parking lot, rubbing my tired feet. Ethan came out, holding his car keys. "Tough day?" he asked, tilting his head with that easy smile. "You could say that," I replied, managing a soft laugh. "Do you need a ride?" he offered. "I don't mind." My first instinct was to decline, but something in his tone wasn't forward, it was sincere, so I said yes. That short drive felt like something out of someone else's life. We talked about our jobs, our families, what music we liked, and even laughed over a shared love of terrible diner food. For once, I didn't feel like the background nurse or the girl no one noticed. He made me feel seen. And from that day forward, my once predictable days began to feel different. I still wore the same scrubs, walked the same halls, and followed the same routine, but suddenly, there was something, or someone, making it all feel new. Little did I know, the heart sees things long before the mind understands them. The weeks that followed blurred like watercolors on wet paper, soft, hazy, and full of moments I didn't know how to name yet. Somewhere between cafeteria lunches and late shift conversations, Ethan Ward became a part of my everyday. It began with small, quiet gestures. A second cup of tea waiting on my desk, a chair pulled out beside mine at lunch, a shared joke whispered during a dull meeting that made me smile when I was too tired to find joy in anything. He had a way of making the mundane feel light, even beautiful. We never made plans, but we always ended up together. In the break room, our conversations stretched longer. He started sharing stories about his younger brother who lived abroad, about his childhood in a small town where snow buried doorsteps each winter. I told him about my mother, about the house in Willowbrook, and the nights I spent watching rain trickle down my window, wondering what it would be like to be missed by someone. Ethan never rushed me. He listened the way few people do, with his whole attention, as if nothing else existed. And that made me feel important. One evening, the hospital was quieter than usual. A patient had been discharged early, and the staff had a moment to breathe. I was reviewing charts when Ethan walked up behind me. "I've got 2 movie tickets for Saturday," he said, casually placing them on the table. "I don't like going alone. Would you come with me?" I stared at the tickets for a second too long. No one had asked me out in years, let alone someone like him. I hesitated, but the hope in his voice felt honest. "All right," I said quietly, "but you're buying popcorn." He smiled. "Deal." That Saturday, I wore a soft blue dress. It wasn't fancy, but it was my favorite, simple, like me. Ethan showed up in a charcoal shirt and clean jeans. He looked effortlessly good, but he didn't treat the evening like it was a grand event. He treated it like us, casual, comfortable, honest. We watched a comedy, the kind with a paper-thin plot, but enough warmth to make you laugh. During the quiet scenes, I could feel his presence beside me, calm and steady. And when we walked out into the cool evening air, he didn't rush. Instead, we wandered through the nearby park, leaves crunching under our feet, the moon watching from above. We talked for hours. About dreams, about loneliness, about the way life always seems to pass you by when you're too busy taking care of everyone else. "I'm glad I met you, Clara," he said at one point, stopping near a quiet bench beneath a street lamp. "You make things easier." I didn't know what to say. My heart was fluttering, unsure of whether to believe this was real or just some sweet illusion. But deep inside, something had already shifted. The next week at work, our closeness became obvious. Colleagues whispered, though never unkindly, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I was waking up excited to go somewhere, not just to help patients, but because someone there made me feel seen, cared for, wanted. I began to wonder if this was the beginning of something beautiful, something I never dared to hope for. But as we all learn eventually, some stories begin with warmth only to be tested by truth. And soon, mine would be no exception. It was a Thursday evening when the first crack appeared. We had just finished a late shift, one of those days that drags you down to the bone. A patient emergency had pushed everyone to their limits, but Ethan and I had held each other up, as we often did. We were sitting outside the staff entrance, the night air cool against our tired faces. The hum of the city was distant, almost peaceful. I remember watching the steam rise from my cup of tea when Ethan spoke, his voice lower than usual. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. I looked up, expecting him to confess something minor, maybe a bad habit or an old regret. Instead, I watched his jaw tighten. His eyes searched mine with a strange guilt resting behind them. "I'm married," he said. The words dropped like stones. My heart didn't race, it froze. I blinked, waiting for some twist, but that would soften the blow. But it didn't come. "Her name is Vanessa. We've been together for 5 years. My mind tried to catch up with what I was hearing. In all these weeks, he had never once mentioned her. No photos on his desk, no stories that hinted at a wife waiting at home, no wedding ring, nothing. "I thought you were single," I whispered, barely able to find my voice. He looked down. "I know. I should have told you earlier. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect you." I didn't speak. I couldn't. The silence between us was suddenly heavy. He continued, slowly, "Vanessa and we've grown apart. We live in the same house, but it feels like we're on different planets. No kids, no real conversations, just a routine. Cold, empty." He turned his eyes to mine. "But with you, Clara, I feel like I'm alive again. I can laugh. I can talk about the little things. I feel human." And still, I said nothing. Because a part of me, one I didn't want to admit existed, wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to the warmth we had built, but the other part, the part that had always protected my heart, was already pulling away. Later that week, it happened. I had gone to the city's large supermarket, just to get groceries and clear my head. I needed something ordinary, something that wasn't tangled in feelings. As I pushed my cart through the frozen foods aisle, I heard a familiar voice. I didn't have to turn around to know it was Ethan. But when I did, I saw him, with her. Vanessa. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, graceful, the kind of woman who looked effortlessly polished. Her coat was designer, her hair fell in perfect waves, and her laugh was light and warm. She looked like the kind of woman you'd see on a magazine cover. And beside her, Ethan was laughing too. They looked happy. My stomach twisted. I stepped back, heart thudding, and left the store without being seen. I didn't even buy what I came for. I just drove home, sat on the edge of my bed, and tried to make sense of it. Why? Why me, if he had her? Why the kind smiles, the laughter, the movie, the tea? What was I to him? A distraction, a secret. I stared at the wall as night turned to dawn, trying to understand my place in a story I never meant to be part of. and for the first time in a long time, I wished I had never let someone in. The morning after I saw Ethan with Vanessa, I didn't sleep, not even for a moment. I sat by the window, watching the sun creep over the rooftops, as if the world dared to begin again, even though mine had shifted. I kept replaying the image of them together, laughing, comfortable, beautiful, like there was no room for doubt, no cracks between them. And I felt small. At work, I moved like a shadow. My feet followed routine, but my heart wasn't in it. I passed Ethan once in the hallway. He smiled, as if everything was still the same. But it wasn't. I couldn't pretend anymore. Later that day, I asked to speak with him. We stood in a quiet corner of the staff lounge. The hum of the vending machine was the only sound between us. "I saw you," I said softly, "at the supermarket, with her." He froze. "You looked happy," I continued. "I don't understand why you've been spending time with me if you already have that." Ethan looked down, his voice barely of a whisper. "Clara, I care about you. I wasn't pretending, but what you saw, it's not the whole story. Vanessa and I have drifted so far apart, we're like strangers in the same house. We play a role in public, but it's not real." I listened. "I feel free when I'm with you," he added. "You listen, you understand, you make me feel like myself." I believed him. Maybe that was the hardest part, because even if his words were true, I knew what I had to do. "I can't do this," I said, holding his gaze. "I can't be part of something that isn't honest. You need to figure out your marriage, not escape it through someone else." He stepped back slightly, pain in his eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I replied gently. "And if you stay, you'll hurt me more." That night, I sat on my couch with a blanket wrapped around me, the silence thick but different, not empty, resolute. I called my best friend, Maya, and poured everything out, the truth, the hurt, the confusion. She didn't interrupt, she just listened, and when I finished, she said only this: "Clara, you deserve to be someone's first choice, not their secret." That sentence stayed with me. Days passed. Ethan gave me space. He didn't call. He didn't push. And I knew that whatever decision he made about his life, his marriage, it wasn't mine to influence anymore. A week later, he asked to meet in the park. The same bench where we once shared quiet laughter now felt like the edge of something final. "I wanted to see you," he said, "just once more, to say thank you." I nodded. "I hope you find your peace, Ethan. Truly, but I need to protect mine." He smiled, a sad, respectful smile, and stood. As he walked away, I didn't feel broken. I felt strong. Because for the first time in a long time, I chose myself. And it wasn't the easy choice, but it was the right one. Life doesn't always give us perfect endings. Sometimes love arrives at the wrong time, from the wrong person. Sometimes it teaches us how much we're willing to give, and what we should never give away. But even in heartbreak, there is clarity. I may have lost Ethan, but I found Clara. And that was worth everything.